Welcome to the Trail Network podcast. I'm Leah Yingling, and this week I chat with Careth Arnold. Careth is a professional ultra runner for Altra and is based in Colorado. She's a mother, she's an artist, she's a horticulturist, and recently she earned a golden ticket to Western States by finishing fourth at the Canyon's 100K. We chat about her ultra running journey and what it really means to balance being a mother while striving to be her best on the trails. I hope you enjoy this chat with Careth as much as I did. Let's get to it. All right. Welcome to the Trail Network podcast, Careth. For those of our listeners who don't know you, I'm so excited to dive in and get to know you a little bit more. You're a mom, you're an artist, you're a horticulturist, I learned, a professional athlete running for both Altra and Ultraspire, and you're the most recent golden ticket recipient after a fourth place finish at the Canyon's 100K a couple weeks ago. So welcome to the Trail Network podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Oh, so I know I just shared a few titles that you hold, but in your own words, can you share with our listeners a little bit more about what makes you you and how you found your way to ultra running?
So I have a very international background. I was born and raised in Thailand, so I've kind of just used to wandering. I'm a good wanderer. I've traveled a lot, and I went to art college in Sarasota, Florida, and that's where I met my husband. But after that, I actually started working for the AmeriCorps, and started working a lot of labor jobs outside. So I really love and love plants, and I really love working outdoors. And when I started working for Botanical Garden, and when I got pregnant with my daughter, and it was right when the pandemic hit, and I was so used to being so active outside all the time, and all of a sudden I wasn't working. I was with my daughter, and I was like, how am I going to let this energy, like, where am I going to put this energy? So I started running, and that was like 2020. So I'm pretty new. I mean, like, I ran a lot, like a little bit, and dabbled, with running, but I didn't run collegiately. I did team sports growing up, but I really didn't do my first like marathon distance until I was 7 months, or no, about 8, 9 months postpartum with my first daughter in 2020. Yeah. So I did my first trail. My first 50K was 2021. Yeah.
Which I saw you won outright too, right?
Yeah, I think it was the one in Florida. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah. So
amazing. That's an experience to line
it
up for your
was.
first ultra and win it
Yeah. And,
overall.
and then of course I started running ultras in Florida too, which is a very different experience.
Yeah, we need to dive into that.
Yeah, I'm so happy to. Yeah,
Oh.
it is quite the experience. But yeah, so that's kind of how I started. And of course, my sister-in-law is Lottie Brinks too. So I was also, inspired and did some running with her that COVID year, because we went to Austin and spent some time with family there in 2020. And we started kind of picking up and running and doing some like distance, and, questioning how far we could take it together. Like, I just remember, like, we were reminiscing on these conversations we had. And I remember she brought up Western States, and I was like, is that like a bunch of races in the West? Like, I had no idea. Like, that's
So
how like
naive.
young that's how amateur I am. I had no idea what she was talking about. I was just like, oh, really? That's cool.
Honestly, that's probably the better place to be in this sport, is just like this gently naive, not knowing what like the
Totally.
big races are. And I think it probably takes a lot of some of the pressure off at times too, because every race is
Hmm.
just another race.
Totally. Yeah, it does.
Oh, well, that's cool. I remember you first came on my radar last year. I was doing a preview episode with the Single Track podcast before Bandera 2023. And I remember looking at your ultra sign up. It was hard to like know much about you, but I just remember being like, you had run a really fast 50 miler. And I was like, I feel like people who can run fast 50 milers will do well on a Bandera course. And then sure enough, you lined up at Bandera. You had an awesome day out there, missing a golden ticket by one spot. I think it was like Courtney, Nicole Bitter, and then you've
Hmm.
had a great race for third place. Yeah,
Yeah,
can you talk a little bit about, because that was your first 100K. It was
it
a golden ticket
was.
race.
Yeah, and
And
that 50 mile you brought up was my first 50 miler.
Oh my gosh. So, yeah, talk a little bit about the trajectory leading up to that. Like you just mentioned, when you learned about Western states, you didn't know much about that. When you were lining up for Bandera and prepping for Bandera, did you know what Bandera meant in the realm of ultra running at that time?
Yeah, actually, I had run the 50K the year before.
Nice.
So yeah, so I'd done that loop. So I was kind of like, okay, I want to see if I could take it to the next level, and just like I just always like to keep challenging myself. So that's
Mhm.
kind of how my progression's like. Okay, if I can do that, let's see if I can, bump it up a little bit more. So that's just kind of how it's just naturally gone. And then of course I pick races based on like what feels right for my family, also what can work for
Mhm.
my family. And because we were in Austin for the holidays, like Bandera was just kind of the perfect race too. And it's the same kind of for canyons. Like it just the where we were when I was looking 7 months postpartum. I was like, you know what, that's gonna work for us. Like that's gonna be a race that can work for us. And I also like to put my name in competitive races because that's really the one way that I can tell, you know, where I'm at as an athlete,
Mhm.
Even though they intimidate me. I'm no lie. I'm always like, I'm not looking at the start list. And Lottie's like reading off names. I'm like, stop, Lottie. Don't read.
I know it's like you and Lottie are almost these like polar opposites and like
Yeah.
how you are like ingrained in the sport, which is really cool.
Totally,
Um,
for sure.
so you mentioned being postpartum. You've talked a little bit about your family. I want to take a step back and talk about 2023 as a whole, because
Mm,
if you're doing any research on you, any stalking on you, you look at your Ultra sign up, and I'm just going to pull it up because you would not be able to tell that you had a baby in 2023.
yeah.
You raced
Yeah.
Bandera in January, you raced Black Canyon 60K in February, American River in April, and then McDowell Mountain Frenzy a few months postpartum in December. Talk about 2023, because it sounds like
Yeah.
while you had a lot of ups in that year, there were also some downs, and just seemed like a pretty
Definitely.
transformative level, like a year for you in general.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, 2023 was a year that brought me closer to faith in so many
Mhm.
ways. We decided we wanted to relocate to Durango. We were renting out our house in Sarasota, Florida. Actually, we've been kind of spending time on the road 6 months out of the year, and we found Durango, and we are like, oh, let's just spend some time here. And I found a good preschool for my daughter, so I was like, yeah. So we kind of signed a lease, and well, this was right after. Well, we already knew we wanted to go to Durango after Bandera, and I had a pretty
Mhm.
strong race for Bandera. I was like coming off being sick that right after, I mean, right before the race. But anyway, I felt overall, I was like, wow, I felt pretty good. But like a week after Bandera, my mom passes unexpectedly.
Oh.
Um, and that just kind of put me into a state of shock.
Mhm.
It was pretty much a week after. And a week after my mom passes, well, first of all, I was also approached by Altra
Mhm.
within that time frame too, and they were like, letting me know they were going to be writing me up a contract and they'd be interested in sponsoring me. And shortly after I find, like, my mom passes, shortly after Ultra reaches out saying they're going to sign me, I find out I'm pregnant. And I'm
Mm.
like, oh my gosh. And I was about 2 weeks pregnant actually when I raced Bandera, and I didn't know.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And it was really, I really didn't have much of a gap between, because I breastfed my now 4 year old until she was about 2.5. So I was
Mhm.
racing those whole first 2 years with her breastfeeding. So I had like just like 4 months where I was like, wow, I had my body back before I got pregnant,
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah. Anyway, so then yeah, so I found out I was pregnant, and so I had to tell Ultra, but they're like, well, it's it's in our contract that we support pregnancy, which I was really
Mm.
thankful for. But I was also
Yeah.
like, man, I don't like my first year as a sponsored athlete, I'm gonna be pregnant, and not only that, I was dealing with a lot of grief. So one of the reasons I didn't realize I was pregnant until about 6 or 7 weeks in, it was because I was associating a lot of the symptoms with grief from the loss of
Mm.
my mom. Um, until I was like, okay, sore nipples aren't grief.
Yeah. This one is not.
This one maybe I should check into. Anyway,
Mm.
so but I decided, you know what, I still feel good, as good as I can be, and I think and I still wanted to race. Ultra didn't push it
Mhm.
on me. They didn't any like I just wanted to race still. I enjoyed it. So I kind of went into both the Black Canyon 60K. I was 8 weeks pregnant. I told myself, you know what, I'm just going to go out and enjoy it. I did have a little bit of a struggle with
Mhm.
nausea on that race, and I really had a hard time keeping food down. So I almost dropped, but then I was like, I was able to put some food down. I was like, okay, I can finish. And then for the American River 50, I was like, okay, if I'm going to race, like this is going to be my last race before I stop. I was 14 weeks pregnant, so I just went into the second trimester.
Uh-huh.
And I flew out there by myself. My 4 year old, my 3 year old at the time, and my husband stayed back. And just for the weekend. And I ran it. I actually got lost for about a mile out. So but I felt pretty good. But then I hit a wall at one point where I was like, I should stop. Like I'm feeling fatigued and tired. And I nearly stopped again and walked into aid station and ate. And I just got this second win. I was like, no, I could do this. And then like I somehow found myself on the podium. I actually caught up to first and was like behind her for a second. But then I was just like, I don't have it in me. And she like beat me up the hill into Auburn. And I was like, I can't. I'm done. Like I should not
Oh.
be here. Anyway, but my recovery was a lot slower being
Mhm.
pregnant. So I had a real slow recovery after that 50 miler. My body felt fine. Like everything, my pregnancy was, going well. But like just my legs and my joint, like my
Mhm.
muscles had a hard time kind of recovering. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of done for racing. But then I actually did another 10 miler race. It's not an ultra sign up because it was a local one when I was about 23 weeks pregnant. And that was fun. But then I was like, okay, I'm done racing. I'm too competitive
I'm
to be
actually
racing
done.
pregnant. Yeah. It's like it's but I ran all the way until about 36 weeks pregnant. So already into my ninth month I ran and I felt pretty good. I did a lot of cross training. I probably did
Yeah.
around 30 miles a week running, 30, 35 at most, sometimes a little less. But I did a lot of cross training and swimming, and of course I had my daughter all summer, so I was just with her all summer too, just yeah, watching her, and then and then I had to actually stop running about 3 weeks before I gave birth because I was having a hard time putting weight on, and my
Uh-huh.
midwife like was like, okay, Careth, like either you need to put a pound on this week or we need to make sure baby's okay, like if baby's
Yeah.
growth is fine. And like I felt like I was eating enough. I just you never it's hard for me to keep up. So I was able to put on that pound. um and I had a very quick and I think one of the reasons my I healed pretty quick was because I had a very uh, quick birth, but it was also
Mhm.
no complications. I actually birthed my daughter myself.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, that's amazing.
yeah. So my first labor with my first daughter was about 20 hours, and it was a natural birth, and I birthed her in the tub. So I wanted to do it this time again too with my second daughter, and we thought we were going to have a lot more time. So I had a midwife and
I
I had a doula, and like 3 hours and 4 hours into labor, I was like, okay, told my husband, I was like, go, you should go fill up the tub. Like, baby's coming. And I was like, oh, maybe I should call my midwife. Maybe I should call my doula. And I was like, no, I still have time. And then I was like, and then I like started throwing up because that's like when I was getting into transition. And I was like, no, I have to call her. My doula was like, okay. And my midwife was like, call your doula. Like you're there. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? There was like no water in the tub. My midwife was like an hour away. My doula came like 10 minutes before I birthed. So she was like supporting me, but doulas can't deliver your baby. So, and there was no water in the tub, and I was on all fours, and I pulled my daughter out. I birthed my
that
baby.
is
Yeah, it
incredible. Oh
was,
my gosh.
yeah. And she was small compared to my first
Yeah.
one, but she was super healthy. Um, and just cried right away. And I just held her on my chest until my midwife was able to come. But like I didn't have any tears, and I think because I don't know, just I was able to heal pretty well from that delivery.
Man, talk about an experience that, like, I feel like just speaks to the resilience of women and the strength
Yeah,
of women. That is
yeah.
That is
There's
incredible.
yeah, it's something else for sure. And I my doula was also my a pelvic floor PT, so that really
Mhm.
was super helpful as well because she taught me so much about my pelvic floor. She taught me so much about my the muscles in my pelvic floor. So when I was actually in labor and contractions, I was able to engage and really open up as much as it's so discomforting and it's so painful, but like I was able to give in to that process, and just that awareness of my body really helped my childbirth too, and the healing part postpartum.
Mhm.
So like I
Yeah,
think that whole process was
it's
what really
so
helped me.
interesting because I feel like people always talk about the pelvic floor, like post pregnancy and just like healing. But I feel like you're just speaking to like just the importance of it going into
Oh
labor
yes,
and just
for
that
sure.
awareness of your body. And gosh, I almost feel like once you deliver your own baby like that, like there's nothing you can't do. That is
I think
incredible.
about that sometimes.
I know, yeah, so, gosh, that is incredible, and I'm sure that's something that, like, when the going gets tough in races, that you can remind yourself, "Hey, I've done really hard things, like deliver my own
Yes,
baby."
I do remind myself that.
This episode is made possible by Arc'teryx. As an ultra runner for over a decade now, I know exactly what I need to help me move efficiently and safely through mountains and on a wide variety of trail conditions. Finding shoes that can keep up with me, however, is not always easy to do, which is why I am so excited about Arc'teryx's new footwear line, which launched this spring. Their unique process of designing, developing, testing, and iterating with athletes at the peak of their sport has led to some of the best shoes and innovations in the footwear space today. They have recently launched the Cylon, which I am personally in love with. It has a propulsive rocker, which makes you feel extra speedy, and a super grippy Vibram outsole, which maximizes speed and traction on rugged mountain runs. I've been running in these shoes for the last few months, including at my recent Leona Divide 55K race, and I have been so impressed with how well they handle a wide variety of terrain. They have amazing traction, but they also have plenty of midsole cushion underfoot, which is extremely important for me as I ramp up my training for a Bigfoot 200 miler later this summer. Arc'teryx also has a run free challenge happening on Strava this month. Run, walk, or otherwise cover 40 total miles during the month of May, and you'll be entered for a chance to win one of 40 pairs of the Silent shoes. Head to Strava and search for the Arc'teryx Run Free Challenge or find the link in our show notes and join today. And now back to our episode.
Yeah, how old are your kids now? And talk a little bit about how you've integrated running back into your life or just, like, into your life. You never really lost running through your pregnancies and, like, your, uh, children's, like, early days, so, yeah, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my daughter Cypress is 4, and Shiloh is 7 months.
Oh.
So yeah, and they're very high energetic kids. And so I'm not working right now because we
Mhm.
kind of just did a big transitional move. We had the big life change. Like a month after Shiloh left, we packed up out of Durango, put stuff in storage, went back to Florida to sell our house, like put that back on the market, sold it, and then came out here. Actually, we just closed on our house right now. We just bought a house out in Paonia in Colorado. It's a small, sweet little town that we really appreciate. And it's great for raising families, so we kind of chose it. Anyway, so we just literally moved into our home. Well, barely moved in. We're like camping in it because we have no furniture. Like last week.
Oh my gosh, so you've just been in a state of
We've
disarray
just been
for
on,
a
yeah, we've
minute.
just been on the road, like bouncing from Airbnb, like in our travel trailer, and it's challenging with training, like I
Mhm,
have, and my husband works remote and he works on Eastern time. So, when we're on Pacific time, he's got to be at meetings at 7. When we're in
mhm.
Mountain time, it's at 8. So I really have this window between 5 and 8 where I have to do my workouts, where I have to do my training. I don't like by the afternoon, I'm just exhausted after I'm like, been with 2 kids all day. So I'm not great at, working out in the afternoons after he's done. Yeah, so that's kind of my window. And like when I'm traveling, there's also a level of vulnerability because it's like, oh, like you have to explore all these new places. You
Mhm.
don't know what kind of terrain you're gonna have. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of how I've been doing it. And recovery is, I don't know. My daughter still feeds a couple times through the night. Like I average probably 6.5 hours of sleep.
Mm.
Half the time I don't know. Honestly, going into canyons, I had surrendered it because we've just been such a transitional like move. We've just been on the road and moving. I really didn't think much of it. I was tired going into that week. I literally, yeah, I kind of surrendered it. I was like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna show up. I know I need to finish it fast because my husband can't be with my two kids for too much longer than 10 hours. I was like, okay, I got to go in. And that's really kind of been my incentive in finishing races fast, is just my kids. I'm like, I have to get to them. There isn't an option, you know? I mean, of course, there's the option of DNFing, but I'm too stubborn. I'm like, I
No,
can't.
yeah.
Like, if I'm in it, and I did actually DNF one race. It was a 50K in Boise. I actually it was a training race for canyons. Sorry, I'm probably
Uh-huh.
going on a tangent here,
No, this
but
is fun.
is because we were camping out. It was out in the Owahis, and
Hmm.
it was this crazy storm that came in the morning, and I didn't dress for it, and I had to drop 10 miles in because I was hyperthermic.
Oh my God.
I got so cold, I couldn't stop shivering for an hour. I was like, this is really bad. And that was like 3 weeks before Canyon. So I didn't really have anything to show. I was like, I felt like, man, I just DNF'd this like local 50K. Like, I don't even know. But then, yeah, I just went in and I just felt really strong that whole race. Um,
That's
like
that's
I did have
incredible.
moments of real underfueling because I didn't have like my husband was my crew, but he wasn't really my crew. So he wasn't
Hmm.
like shoving stuff in me, and then I had a moment of like leaving him, and I was like, "What? I have two gels and I have 17 miles." I'm like, "What am I doing?"
You're like, oh no.
Yeah. So like the first half, I fueled better for canyons, and the second half, I found myself just like very underprepared.
Mhm.
You know. Anyway,
Oh,
we're
gosh,
jumping all over the place. Sorry.
you stuck with it though. I mean, gosh, I just even
Yeah.
thinking about like canyons and like how you described your build up that week. Like I don't know if you're coached or not, but I talk to my own coach just about like fatigue resistance a lot and like life fatigue. And it's really
Hmm.
easy to look at like a lot of our competitors out there, look at this like beautiful training that they put together, like optimal
Totally.
recovery and things like that. And like what you speak to is just like the life fatigue and like at times I think there's a lot of people that could consider that a detractor from performance and like maybe it is, but in some ways I almost think it's like a contributor to performance as well. Like it gives you that extra layer of resilience and being able to like perform and work hard when you're exhausted, when you're tired,
Definitely.
when you're fatigued, you're
Yeah.
hungry, and it's almost like it gives you that second level of to tap into.
Yes, totally. And it's also like with racing to me, it's a voluntary, you know,
Mhm.
fatigue. It's a voluntary fatigue again. Like I've chosen
Yeah.
that. But like with the fatigue I have with life, I haven't. So it's almost like I kind of tell myself, no,
Mhm.
like you can get through this, if you can get through the involuntary, you can get through the voluntary.
Mhm. That's
Anyway.
such a good point. That's a
Yeah.
good mantra to think about. And I also like how you talk about trying to get to the finish line as fast as possible. Like what a motivating factor. Like I don't have my own family yet. It's something that my husband and I desire in the next couple years. But like we were just at a race at Quad Rock this past weekend and we saw someone crossing the finish line with their two girls. And my husband looks at me, he's like, there's nothing I want more than that. And like every time I see a
Hmm.
mom or a dad finishing a race with their kids, it's such a special feeling just to watch and it brings tears to my eyes. And I saw your finish from Canyons and you just got a big hug, like a sprint.
Yeah.
Your little girl, right? She like sprinted
Yeah.
to you at the finish line. I was like, oh my gosh, she's
Yeah.
gonna be an
I
ultra
know.
runner. That's gotta be special.
Yeah, it is. It is so special. It makes it so much more like rewarding. It's like, and but then it's like as soon as I'm done, I'm like on mom duty.
Hmm.
I like they're on me, they're ready for me. Like I think it was like they took me and I had to do a drug test, but like after that, I was ready. Like, I remember just like balancing. The director of the race came up to me while I was like trying to hold one kid on the porta potty, and like my other daughter was like here, and she was like, oh, I just want to tell you that, like, you know, I don't know, she had some encouraging words, and I was like, uh-huh, yeah, that's great, you know, you want to take a kid? I was like, anyway, I was just like, I remember thinking like, man, like there's no room for like,
No.
yeah, it's fun.
None
But
at all. Yeah,
yeah.
that's gosh, I was just sifting through some of your photos from your races from the last year, and it does look like your husband is your crew in most of your races and your kids are there. And you mentioned Lottie being your sister-in-law, and I can't tell if she's a good or bad influence since the
Oh,
fact that you've gotten so deep
yeah.
into ultra running now. But yeah, talk a little bit about yeah, it's almost like a family affair for you guys. How
Oh,
does
for sure.
your husband integrate into your running, your crew? What's that relationship look like for you?
He's very encouraging. Yeah, he's very encouraging, which is really nice. And he tries to be as accommodating as possible. You know, so like on weekends, when I do my long runs, he'll sleep in with the kids, and,
Mhm.
he'll take them for a chunk of the morning. But, we just have to tag team. We tag team because we don't
Mhm.
live next to family really, which is really hard for us because like we haven't gone on a date night since like my 4-year-old was born. I think we had
Mhm.
one date night. you know, like that part kind of gets wear and tear, but like we just learn. It's just this balance, and they stay young for so little,
Mhm.
of a time, and then we see that already in our 4-year-old. We're like, wow, we don't even remember her baby years, and
Aw.
so now I'm looking at my baby now, and I'm like, I'm just fully embracing this. Like I'm embracing every moment I have in her babyness. you
Oh,
know,
I love to hear
because
that.
it's so quick, and she just changes so fast. But yeah, he's been very supportive, and it's been fun. Like, the couple times, and I was originally planning to support Lottie at Western, and I was really looking forward to it. So it was
Mhm.
really hard for me to decide whether to take the ticket or not, because the part of me was like, oh, like it would be. I would really also just enjoyed crewing.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
this
so I
was
really wasn't planning
interesting.
to take the ticket.
Oh, okay, cool. Because like
Hmm.
I was following the race and I was like, okay, there's always that potential where it can roll down to fifth place. And something when I was tracking you during the race, I was like, oh my gosh, Careth missed out on a golden ticket by one spot again. And this was when MK was still kind of toggling with the idea of taking the ticket or not. Did that ever cross your mind that it would potentially roll down to you and what that decision would look like?
Honestly, at both Bandera and Canyons, I wasn't going for a ticket.
Wow.
I was really just going to show up to race and to see how well I could do. Um,
Mhm.
so, and I originally thought, because I was also signed up to run High Lonesome, which, is would be my first. I haven't run 100 miles yet.
Oh.
So, I mean, that would have been a very ambitious. I mean, I know Western's a pretty ambitious first 100 miler too, but like, High Lonesome's a different type of 100 miler. Um, anyway, so I was planning to run that in July, and then pace Lottie at Western. And then, when it rolled down to me, I had to take some time, and to really think about it. And I talked to Lottie a bit, and, I just kind of was, my body recovered really well from canyons. And I was like, I feel like I could do it. Um, so I just decided to do it.
Let's do it. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does training look like between now and then? Because yeah, you've got a great effort under your belt. It's almost like the work there is done and you just almost have to maintain. How do you find yourself approaching it the next 2 months?
Not nothing too crazy. I'm probably gonna stay
Mhm.
more on the moderate side. I do have a coach, so Nicole Monette coaches me.
Oh,
I picked
nice.
her. She started coaching me. Yeah, 2 months ago. I was self-coached through pregnancy and most of postpartum because that's a very intuitive process. So I
Mhm.
really kind of just wanted to go on that journey on my own. And then when I felt my body was ready, I really wanted to find another mother coach, and I really admire her as a human and as a runner. And she said she had availability, so she started coaching me about 2 months before Canyons. And we've been it's been great. I've really been appreciating her. And she did say she will come and crew me for Western, because that was the other factor that was like, I have no crew. Like I can't do Western just with my husband crewing me. Like it was
Mm-mm.
kind of a, not such a wonderful experience at canyons, just in regard to the crew aspect of it. So when she like affirmed that she would come help and she could come pace, I was like, okay, like that's one of the, that made me like, okay, I'll do it. If she hadn't, or if, I don't think I would have been able to, I wouldn't have taken it, just the stress of being able to pull a crew together last minute and all of that. So that kind of really helped make that decision as well.
That's awesome. Do you have anybody else on your crew so far that you've been putting together?
I know Brian from Ultra, Brian Beck said he's going to be out
Mhm.
there. I think there's another ultra, a European ultra athlete who's also racing Western. So I know he offered to help me for I think the first half, or when, wherever I need help. But yeah, so I'll have that support too, which will be nice. But that's kind of it. I think we have
Keep
friends
it
coming to
simple.
help Derek and support my husband and the kids, and that helps. That's like, yes, okay. Derek will have some friends. The kids will be kind of distracted, because I
Yeah,
know it's
yeah,
going to go a
Derek
lot
needs his own
longer.
crew.
Yeah. So the other, yeah, exactly. The other wild card for me is breastfeeding, because like
Mhm.
and that's the other thing I had to train for canyons was breastfeeding my daughter. So about a month out, I had kind of changed up her schedule, where I feed her through the night, and so like right before the race at Canyon started, I knew I wanted to, like, she needed to feed, so then I would start the race with empty boobs.
Mhm.
And then I also put her on a schedule so that because she takes solids now, so she takes her, and she likes to eat, so she does her all her breakfast and her morning all on solids. So like my breasts don't think that they need to feed her within in the morning. So I had to start training for that. Both me and her, we were kind of going through that breastfeeding training process. So really, her first feed was like late morning, and then or like early afternoon. And then so when canyons came around, like my boobs weren't producing, they weren't, it's amazing how they regulate to that demand, that supply and demand. So, and plus, so they didn't think they needed to give out a feed in the morning. So they kind of chill in the morning. But then because I'm also kind of depleting when I'm running, they can't overproduce and engorge even when it
Uh-huh.
comes time to like that late morning feed or that afternoon. They're still making milk, but they're just not getting uncomfortable because I don't have enough to supply that, oversupply. And I've been an overproducer. I've like an overproducer with milk. It's crazy. That's the other thing I
Oh,
have to like deal with all the time, is like this like cycle of breastfeeding, which is probably the most challenging um thing to process and plan for, is breastfeeding, man. It's hard.
oh
It's really
oh my
hard.
gosh. I can't imagine between training and then, like you mentioned, just having to prepare that aspect of your life pre-race
Yeah.
so you can have a
Yeah.
as comfortable as a
Yeah.
race as possible. Like
And I
that's
didn't
its
know
own
if I was gonna have to, yeah, I didn't know if I was gonna have to stop and pump for canyons, but I didn't.
thought.
I didn't have to. I kept checking. I do like the field checks. I'm like, no, they're good. They're good. We can still go. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, for Western, I'm like wondering if I'm gonna have to pump or stop and feed Shiloh. Like, it's kind of an unknown. I don't
How
quite
old
know.
Will Shiloh be, like 9 months then?
She will be just about 9 months. Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That'll probably be
Anyway.
special coming around the track and getting to see your kids.
Oh,
That'll make
for
it all worth
sure.
it.
Definitely. Yeah. So my plan is
Oh,
just to get there, just to finish.
amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, thinking about your kids, I love how much they've been able to see you race, be a part of your race. What's one thing you want them to take away if you keep doing this ultra running thing as they get older?
Um, that perseverance, and just finishing what you start, and that even though things, life, and whatever we choose can be uncomfortable, that the reward of finishing it is so much more, like
Mm,
to get past those areas of discomfort, because there is so much more beauty that awaits, like that
mm.
process, of long suffering, for sure. already just kind of seeing it's just hard when they're kids. They're so raw. Like already
Mm.
my daughter, my 4-year old, she loves to ride bikes on her pedal bike, but like, she screams and throws a fit every time she has to go uphill. So it's already a good example. I'm already like, no, like, come on, if mama can run up lots of hills, like, you can walk your bike up the hill. And she's like, okay, mama. It's just, anyway, it's fun to already see like the little teaching moments and the ways that it's already unfolding. So anyway,
If she
sorry.
ever sees you crying in a race, she's gonna want to have a word with you and tell you, no.
She loves it. She loves going to races, though. It's cute.
Oh, that is amazing. Well, yeah, Careth, this has been so fun. I'm so excited to see you at Western States, see your kids at Western States, and just see what you can put
Yes,
together. Because,
I know.
gosh, just everything you've talked about, I feel like there's no greater strength than mom strength, and I think you're just complete evidence of that, and it's so inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you too. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be
It'll
a
be
good day.
awesome.
Hopefully, we can share some miles together.
But yeah, thank you so
Awesome.
much. I
Well, thanks
appreciate
again,
it.
Careth. Great to chat.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks again to Careth for joining us on this week's episode of the Trail Network podcast. If you've been enjoying the show, please like, subscribe, comment, or send us a nice message on social media. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time.